Quartz Ridge is a 24.5-kilometer, 1,700-meter elevation gain point-to-point trip that takes you to what I can only expect to be one of the least visited peaks in the Canadian Rockies. I have found no information on any other people ever being to Quartz Ridge, other than one ski pole which we found early along the ridge. By the way, Quartz Ridge is just a name we gave to it. Call it whatever you want, because it doesn't have a name. So the 24.5 kilometers and 1,700 meters elevation doesn't seem too bad, right? You couldn't be more wrong. For 20 kilometers or 12.5 hours, the terrain is about equal parts bushwhacking and Chaussee Ridge. You do get an easy last hour out on trail though. This begs the question of why you would want to do this trip in the first place. I have a couple reasons. 1. Avoid the crowds. 2. The views. 3. The ridge is actually pretty fun. Kind of. So drive out to Marble Canyon Day Use area and cross the 93 to the Marble Canyon Campground. Once inside the campground, take the southern road towards the J-Loop. When you see a trail branching off to the right, away from the campground, take it. This will get you started on somewhat of a trail in Hafner Creek. We did not know about this and ended up parking at the water tower in the campground and getting a warning for parking there. And also, we started off bushwhacking straight away.
Probably we can just go to the creek. It's all ready. Looking like it's gonna be pretty intense bushwhacking. Okay.
If you do end up bushwhacking from the water tower like we did, you should immediately head right and make it to the creek in a couple minutes. You'll want to stay on Climbers left of the creek for most of the way up Hafner Creek. Within the first half an hour of the trip, you'll run into a canyon section.
As long as
we started going up inside the canyon and had to find a route out of the canyon on the right side after doing a creek crossing. On the right side above the canyon we ran into many small trees, but we eventually made our way back to the creek, where we were confronted with a lot of deadfall. For the most part we stuck close to the creek, but staying high above the creek on the left side works very well, as we learned when we did Ball and Beatrice the next year. Sometimes the bushwhacking is actually not bad.
Yeah, I'm lighter than I thought I would be too. I was expecting like really heavy, but then I thought like, this is gonna take so long.
Follow the creek and eventually you will see a head wall you have to ascend. That is the right arrow in this picture. The head wall towards Ball and Beatrice is on the left. The valley is actually quite beautiful.
Well, it's kind of hard. This is like a very wide angle camera, which is good like when you have actual views.
At the bottom of the head wall there will be a waterfall. Ascend Climbers left of the waterfall and eventually the terrain will level out.
You might choose the wrong way.
You will want to ascend this slope. The vegetation will start to thin out a bit. Here is a view looking back towards Hafner Creek. Keep going up the slope and traversing a bit Climbers right and eventually your terrain will level out again. You will need to ascend to this pass. Once you make it to the pass, go northeast towards Mount Ball. The ridge will quickly turn to shale, which is very slippery, so you need to have your hands ready.
Shale feels very slippery.
The ridge going up to the first peak is very straightforward. Once you make it to the first peak, you will realize that the ridge does not look particularly easy. This is correct. It is not easy.
Mega shit.
Descend from the first peak and continue northeast along the ridge. The shale will disappear and the route will become slightly more exposed. After this short dip in the ridge will elevate to a peak and you will be on the southeast face. Low down on this face is where we started finding quartz, as we traversed up and to Climbers right.
It's beautiful.
You start off with easy scree. As you move more to the right, the terrain will start to look more foreboding. Eventually you will make it to a first gully that you can work around by going up until it subsides and then across. Continue right and you'll hit a drop. Just before the drop is a gully that you will ascend. Once above the gully, go to Climbers right and you will see there is still a very large drop to your right. You can also see the final peak we ended up on. Go straight up beside the drop to your right.
summit this one.
Finally, you'll be able to avoid the drop and start going to Climber's Right. This is the immediate route you take. After you get around that tower using the ledge, you arrive at the crux of the trip, an exposed face with a narrow ledge you must use.
Oh, that's a big fucking spider. Holy shit, look at that. Don't fall. This one you really don't want to fall. If you fall down that. I mean, you'll probably survive, but like... I mean, generally I aim for a bit more than... Yeah. This is totally like a normal hike for us, you know. Nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, we had something like this on Ptarmigan, but not near to this narrow or exposed. Is, yeah, probably so far the worst thing we've done. I don't even know if a rope would help. I don't know. Basically just like pendulum into the fucking wall, and it would just hurt a lot. Yeah, ropes are really heavy though. Those would really slow us down. We wouldn't need more than one. See? Don't look down, and we did it. And don't tell my dad. Yeah, well, don't tell my parents. Especially don't tell my mom. Do they look at your video? Sometimes. Actually, my mom tries not to. She's like, boy, why do you do this? I can't watch it. We did it. Yeah, like she gets really stressed out. My dad will be like, make sure you're safe.
Soon after the ledge traverse, you arrive at this obstacle, which I went around on the right. Regain the ridge and you will be at a nice flat section. After this flat section, there will be a series of obstacles to bypass on the right.
Even in the bad parts, this is... The logs were bad. No, this is like, you have to be a lot more careful. Yeah. Like, you don't wanna, like, trip on a log, you fall on your ass. Trip on this and, well, goodbye.
There is an exposed section as well. You'll have a break for a bit. Eventually you'll end up at a chossy downclimb. After some easier terrain, we worked around this next peak to the right. It is a series of cliffs and ledges. Also beware of the choss. Once around the peak, there is one more difficult section which I filmed on descent. But for the most part, it is an easy scramble to the summit.
We're like so close. Yeah, we could go peek over that ditch. Ascent that we didn't do. Sure.
That difficult section I was talking about is a couple meter face on the ridge. If you move along the ledge to the left of the face, there will be a weakness. This video is from us descending the weakness. We made it around the peak immediately in front of us, to the left, and then decided we would take an alternate descent route starting around here. We came out this valley to the 93. The descent starts off as scree, but it isn't a nice loose scree descent. We were funneled into a gully and proceeded to walk down the slope towards Skier's Right. Once we were back in forest, we continued towards the southwest. Eventually we hit a creek, which we started following down. It turned into a waterfall and we broke off on Skier's left. The bushwhacking started getting bad, so we made our way back to the creek and crossed it. When we neared the end of the valley, we cut up the hill to our right and took the corner high. Once around the bend, we started heading down again. Eventually, we were saved by a trail. This is why I suggest you go high on the corner. Otherwise, you might miss the trail.
Of a bit of running. Yes! There's a trail! Yeah! We're saved!
Once on the trail, follow it southwest and you'll end up at the 93, where hopefully someone can pick you up.